For years, religious scholars have thought the United States a region unconducive for miracles. Politics and loose women aside, history has proven a divine bias toward desert biomes with figures like Jesus of Nazareth, the Prophet Muhammad, and Lady Guadalupe. Atheists have long cited this sanity skew as evidence against the existence of higher power, claiming that it is no coincidence that mirages and divine intervention share the same breeding grounds. But for the pious people of the Great Plains, it's plain disappointing. Deserts be damned, a St. Louis house cat may change all that. At the ripe age of 1, Annabelle, a gorgeous domestic longhair, took a trip to the vet expecting some good old-fashioned tube tying. Little did doctors know Annabelle would soon return home as fertile as ever. Malpractice or the mysterious ways of God, we'll leave that one for the omniscient, but her pristine ovaries would soon surprise the world. 5 years passed while the pussycat lived a calm, chaste life with their loving family, the Mileses. Things fell apart, however, when litter-mate Olaf was struck and killed by a car. Andrea Miles, her owner, testified to the effect the death had on her feline friend. As far as I'm concerned, Annabelle was a changed cat. Her beautiful white coat went a bit gray, and she just meowed all day long. I like to think she's preaching the good word. But that wasn't all. Annabelle soon gained 10 pounds, and veterinarian David Chow confirmed it wasn't just emotional eating. To be honest, I had never worked with a pregnant cat before, but the x-rays proved it. What a little bundle of joy. What had happened? Annabelle's primary caretaker, Andrea Miles, was outraged with her local veterinarians, but she claimed that her wrath subsided when God approached her in a Chantex-fueled dream. All I heard was this booming voice that said, "Don't be afraid. Your cat is with Kitten. Your cat is with Kitten." I knew right there I was dealing with Immaculate Conception. Weeks later, Annabelle went into labor and delivered 4 healthy babies. Despite her reported vision, Andrea never considered litter size and has had difficulties identifying the true Son of God. Well, I know it's not Yahweh or Holly because they are girls, so it's down to Spirit and Emmanuel. The St. Louis local isn't the only one stumped, and so we turn to famed philosopher De Selby to answer our existential questions.
Thank you again for being with us here today, De Shelby. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to start off with some simple questions. Why St. Louis? Has God abandoned his own frontier for the Middle East?
I just want to thank you for having me on. As you might imagine, my professional life has taken a hit ever since I came forward with this idea that Jesus might be reincarnated in a cat. To answer your question, yes, I will. Not to toot my own horn of Jericho, but I've long predicted that global warming would end God's divine proclivity for the Middle East, as you put it.
Yeah, but a little bit of a stretch, don't you think, De Shelby?
No, I don't think it is at all a stretch. I think, as you well know, that as global warming has taken its effect, our climates are becoming slowly homogenized, and I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that. I'm not saying is that a prophetic polar bear is going to emerge from Antarctica and preach the good word of the Lord. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that God has had this favoritism towards hot climates. With global warming equalizing this everything, would it not make sense that he could emerge from a northern or Arctic climate?
Well, I'll tell you, De Shelby, you are a much more learned man than I. So tell me, are there any historical precedents for this sort of thing? A crossbred Christ, perhaps?
Historical precedents? Well, yes, of course. The ancient Egyptians revered felines as gods. It's not all. Zeus himself spread his seed around various gene pools, impregnating cattle, chickens, perhaps even. I recall one story where a lucky chicken was penetrated by that deitic deity. Recall perhaps the prime example is the Minotaur. That great Minotaur was the offspring of Zeus. Now why would discrimination start now in the 20th century? I don't reckon I know.
Well, as made evident in your book, Golden Hours, you have been quite vocal with your opinion on the age-old debate, cats vs. dogs. Do you feel that Annabelle and her biblical brood may sway public opinion?
Well, yes, it's a very fair question, and I've given it a lot of thought. Actually, well, I'll tell you that shortly after my answer. But my point is this: yes, I do think God has made a stance. He's decided that man's best friend is an affront to man's savior, the feline. I think the whole age-old debate between cats and dogs has been finally settled. as I was saying, last night I actually went outside, put a shotgun to my border collie's head, and I blew his head off. I regret that slightly, but I think people should follow my example and just, if you've got a dog, if you've got a parrot, you've got a ferret. In fact, if you've got even the hamsters, I think the hamsters should be thrown into washing machines. You get the point. Cats are where it's at. God has chosen felines.
Well, Shelby, as always, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
The wise de Selby shined much-needed light on Annabelle and Divine litter, but mystery still remained. Sadly, my investigation came to an abrupt end when I posed a question to owners Andrea Miles and Francisco Carretero. If their kittens were truly God and carnivore, what then was Annabelle? Divine, or merely flesh and blood? The couple drew different conclusions, and I was forced to bear witness as their discussion devolved into domestic abuse when Francisco Carretero, a self-professed Catholic, began lashing his spouse with a ball and string cat toy. Soon after, we promptly took our leave. Has a higher power truly paid a visit to the Midwest? Well, that's for Rita to decide. But one thing is certain, crime will always be committed in the name of God, be it a feline or a great ape.